Hey members, you hereby summons the monthly meeting of Business and Culture to be held remotely via WebEx and physically in the Chamber offices in Derry Road, Strabane. If I take the roll call, Alderman Cook.
Online.
Alderman Guy.
Here's the
Alderman Middleton.
Here online.
Councillor Cusack.
Here.
Councillor Farrell.
here.
Councillor Fleming.
And Shaw.
Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Hart. Councillor Hutton.
And Shaw.
Councillor McDade. Councillor McGowan. Councillor McHugh. Councillor Farrell. Councillor O'Neillis.
Erlina.
Thank you, members.
I'll just read out the broadcasting statement. I'd like to remind everyone present at this meeting in the chamber or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the council privacy notice may be found on the council website. Thank you. Item 4, declaration of members' interests. If anybody has any interest that they want to declare now or throughout the meeting, you can let me know or put it in the chat box. Councillor Hutton.
Just on the cultural grant aid stuff, I want to declare an interest as an employee of Bogside Brandywell Health Forum and a trustee of the Bloody Sunday Trust.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. Councillor Cusack.
Just I'm a board member of the Theatre Trust and Millennium presentation, so they'll know me.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Cusack.
Just on the same item as well, I'm employee of the Siege Museum.
Thanks, Alderman Guy. Councillor Fleming.
Just to declare an interest, I'm also a member of the board of the Theatre Trust. So.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. So we'll move on to item 5, deputations to receive Mr. David McLaughlin, Chief Executive of Millennium Forum, Mr. John Edmund, and Mr. Martin Bradley, Chairperson, Derry Theatre Trust, to discuss the recent report on Millennium Forum's economic impact and community contribution. So welcome you to the meeting here today. So I'll hand it over to yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is David McLaughlin. I'm the Chief Executive, of the Millennium Forum. I'd just like to thank you all for allowing myself and Martin Bradley, our Trust Chairperson, the time and the opportunity today to speak to you all and present and discuss our economic impact study, which was compiled by John Edmund. John has a really extensive track record in the arts and tourism strategy and planning, and has worked on significant projects with many lead officers from the council who I believe are present today. He was chair of the Arts Council for some 8 years and was involved in the creation and direction of organisations such as Northern Ireland Screen and other organisations like the Northern Ireland Music Industry Commission. At various times throughout his career, he's also served as the Chief Executive and a Chairperson of the Grand Opera House in Belfast. So hopefully you can see how extensive his track record is. If it's okay with the members, I'll pass you over to John now, who I believe will be able to discuss the study in more detail and explain the rationale and its development. And then we're happy to answer any questions after that. Thanks very much. So it's over to you now, John.
John, are you going to proceed? You're on mute there, but I don't see your lips moving anyway. You can hear us okay? John, can you hear us? David, doesn't look as if John can hear us.
I'm just speaking to him there on the phone. John's obviously based in London, so he is, Chair. He can hear everything that you're saying, but he believes that he's on muted. So he is. So he's just checking it again now, just to see if he can sort it out from his end. So he is. So as I say, he can hear everything that we're saying, but can't hear. But he doesn't seem to be able to speak. So if you just give us a wee second, that'd be appreciated. Thanks very much.
David, we'll continue on with the rest of the business while you try to get the issue rectified. And then if you can let us know in the chat box if you get it sorted.
Thank you,
Okay.
Chair. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, chairperson's business. I'd just like to thank our outgoing committee members for their contribution to the Business and Culture Committee thus far, to Councillor Lillian Barr and to Councillor Ray McCready. And I'd like to welcome Alderman Darren Guy to the committee as Vice Chairperson, and Councillor Catherine McDade, who is en route. People get a nosebleed sometimes when they have to go to Strabane. Maybe it's her first time, I don't know, she could have got lost, but so welcome to the committee. I have a number of items on Chair's business that councillors and aldermen have contacted me. The first item, item number one, item number two may be related. So the first one is Chelsea Cook, Alderman Cook, in relation to the public realm scheme in Society Street, and Councillor Hutton is looking to talk also on parking in Society Street, so they could be interlinked. So Alderman Cook, if you want to go ahead there, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak today on behalf of my colleague Alderman McMorris and myself. The community meeting was held in St Augustine's Church Hall with residents, business owners, a council officer and Department for Communities representatives in order to discuss the planned public realms work, which are due to start in the next few months within the Society Street area. Alderman McMorris and myself attended this meeting where a lot of concerns were raised, and thankfully, through positive dialogue, Tony Monaghan from Council and the DFC representatives were able to bring positive solutions back to a further community meeting, which allowed the public realms work to go ahead with some changes to facilitate the needs of the residents and businesses. One concern that was raised repeatedly, which was not able to be addressed, was for there to be a parking solution for residents in the Palace Street area. Whilst we recognise it is not the responsibility of council to provide car parking for residents, and with the understanding that this is a wider city centre issue, not only in this council area but others, it was agreed that these residents were unique as they had no facility to access any parking in front of their homes due to the narrow width of the road at the front of their property. These residents have to avail of council's car parking facilities, which costs a significant amount over the course of the year. And it also means if they haven't removed their cars from car parks or street parking in the morning, they also incur costly parking fines. Due to this, I would like to make a proposal that council shall bring back a paper to this committee, giving a detailed report on possible solutions for the residents of Palace Street's parking issues. If a suitable solution is not found through this measure, we would request that a working group is set up to allow councillors to engage with other statutory agents like TFI in order to fully explore all potential solutions. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I really do hope that this proposal will be supported by all the political parties here today.
Thank you, Alderman Cook. Councillor Hutton, do you want to come in there, and maybe if you're in agreement, you might second that?
Second that. That's you've read my mind, Alderman Cook. It's exactly what I was coming in. The request that there would be a paper brought back in relation to the parking issues. The residents of Palace Street have been in touch with our party. Unfortunately, we weren't at the meetings that had happened, but we've been assured that we'll be invited to the rest of them. But it was just exactly what Chelsea has laid out about bringing a paper back and seeing how other stakeholders can come on board to try and come to a solution for the residents. There's literally 2 of them. And obviously, it's not council's responsibility to support parking for residents due to the cost of same. But thanks to Alderman Cook for bringing this forward. Happy to second it and looking forward to a paper being brought back. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hutton. Stephen? Oh, sorry, Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Alderman Cook and Councillor Hutton for bringing this proposal here today. I'm not across the situation myself, but I know that my party colleague, Mark H. Durkin, has been liaising closely with residents on Palace Street, and in particular with the 2 residents who desperately need some form of parking arrangement close to their home. I know that they have made requests for parking permits. Those requests have been denied. I know there's proposals for parking schemes right across the city and district, but there's been no movement whatsoever from DFI. We want to find a resolution for these people. So the proposal that the council brings back a paper to look at options, we're fully in support of that. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Farrell. Stephen?
Yeah, if I can come in there, Chair, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a challenging area for us to be in, but I'm happy to look at it in terms of the wider scheme that's there, what potential solutions or otherwise can be brought. The challenge is always for us as council, if we were to do something that's a land transaction, which has its own issues. So, but all of that will be explored in the paper for members' consideration, and then we can take it from there. If there needs to be further discussions, we can take it obviously into a working group and have a bit more, if there's other agencies need to be involved, we can bring them in at that stage. So, thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. So everybody in agreement with the paper being brought back to this committee? Yeah, okay, I think that's unanimous. I don't see any dissenting voices. I'm just taking these items in Chair's business in order that they come in, and mine's come in before Rory, so I can guarantee you that. So item 3, the Strabane Lifford Half Marathon. I know the Mayor was in town to launch this officially. So I was basically looking for an update on entries and sponsorship. Now, I personally have been working on the sponsorship end of things myself, and I've met a few different companies and have further representations that I've made, trying to get a sponsorship in place for both the Strabane Lifford Half Marathon and the Waterside Half Marathon, because if this event is going to be sustainable in the long term, it's essential that we get that sponsorship in place. So, Aidan, maybe you could give us an update on where we're at. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to give you an update on both half marathons. So as you know, we launched the Lifford Strabane half marathon in the last couple of days. It's going to take place on the 19th of May, all being well. And we would, I suppose, really, as the chair alluded to there, we are actively seeking sponsorship for both the Lifford Strabane and for the Waterside half marathon later on in the year. So I would encourage anybody who has contacts or any companies that would wish to avail of this fantastic sponsorship opportunity to get in touch with us if we haven't been already in touch with you. And if we have been, then please feel free to come back to us anytime soon. We have had, we have increased capacity on both those races. So I would also encourage the general public and certainly our running population to register for both of those events. The key thing, as you know, in previous reports that we've presented, is that we get a high number of registrations, so as early as possible. So it's not just sponsorship that will save it. People will be able to save it literally with their feet. So I would say register early and often for both of those half marathons. So if we can get any message out today, it's get your registration in for May in Lifford Strabane and later in the year then for the Waterside half marathon.
Thanks, Aidan. Does anybody want to come in on that at all? Okay, we'll move on. Councillor Farrell, you want to talk about ministerial priorities in relation to the business and culture?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I don't think it's escaped anybody's notice that we now have a government up in Stormont. We've got an executive and we've got ministers in place for the first time in 2 years. And for the last 2 years, there's been a distinct lack of accountability, distinct lack of progress, and a distinct lack of key issues which are important to this committee and which are important to people right across this city and district. Not one member in this chamber is happy with the performance of Invest NI or the performance of the Arts Council. And not one member is happy with the level of commitment or the investment that those organisations have delivered historically for this city and district. And we have spoken with one voice for the past 2 years, stating that we need to see change instigated across those organisations to deliver regional balance that benefits citizens here in the Northwest. And that applies to the parent departments within the Department for the Economy and the Department for Communities. I think we all speak and we all say the same thing, that the Northwest needs its fair share of investment, the Northwest needs its fair share of jobs, and the Northwest needs its fair share of opportunity. And I, for one, and the SDLP believe and we hope that the formation of the new executive is going to lead to a renewed focus on the Northwest, a renewed focus on finally addressing regional balance and addressing the distinct lack of prosperity, equality and fairness. And I don't have a proposal, but what I do hope is that we have spoken with one voice for the last 2 years about this, and I hope that this chamber continues to speak with one voice, regardless of which ministers are in place, to say that this city and district deserves special treatment. This city and district deserves investment, and this city and district needs the executive to take regional balance seriously. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Farrell. And in the First Minister's speech, she referenced the Northwest and the importance of addressing that regional imbalance. And it'll be one of the priorities for Sinn Féin in the executive to see that happen and to address those issues within Invest NI. They've came to our meeting a few months ago and spoke about how they were going to address those imbalances. So the proof will be in the pudding and what we see. So thank you. Does anybody else want to come in on that at all? Okay. I just want to welcome Councillor Catherine McDade. I did welcome you. That's okay. I'll let you out this time. So just welcome to the committee. We're very grateful that you're attending here, Mr. Mann, today. Thank you. So I think the sound issues have been fixed now. So I'm going to go back to John and Martin and see if you can continue with your update. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, and I hope you can all hear me now.
Yes, yes.
Good. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the way economic impact studies are constructed. I'll run through some of that as briefly as I can for you. But if anybody has any questions on the basis of what I say, just feel free to ask. The intention with an economic impact study, and there are two elements to this particular study, economic impact and community contribution, and I'll come on to community contribution at the end, not because it's any less important. In fact, it could be argued that it is even more vital, particularly in the comment that one of your colleagues has just made about the role and the need for support from Arts Council and others. But it's easier to give some scale to the contribution if we start with looking at the economics. So the intention of an economic impact study is to define the contribution made to the local economy through the operation of the Millennium Forum. This is the third time we've done this independent review, and on each of those occasions we've used a model that was created by Professor Dominic Shellard for the Arts Council of England, which uses two different measures of impact. A local impact measure, which looks at what's called additional voluntary spend. And essentially, that's the spend that the patrons of the theatres make if they have dinner before they go to the theatre, if they have a drink after the theatre, if they had to travel to the theatre, that sort of additional spend. To that, we add salaries and subsistence allowances. If you think about it, if we bring in a show from England, then the cast and crew who are involved in that show, they stay in hotels, they eat in the restaurants, and that's the subsistence allowances we're talking about. To round that up, we then add goods and services bought by the theatre, and we apply to that a thing called a multiplier. And we're using here a type 2 multiplier. And I'll come on to what that is in a minute and why. And the second, and if you like, the total economic impact model as opposed to the local impact model adds turnover and in certain instances overseas earnings to the things that I've just talked about. So before we move on, what's a type 2 multiplier? If you think about it, the economic contribution the theatre makes is not just the money it spends, because the suppliers for the theatres in turn spend the money they get from the theatre, and that's called indirect benefit. And the people who work in those suppliers, they spend money in the local economy, and that's the third element, what they call induced expenditure. And those three elements together constitute the basis on which a multiplier is constructed. Back in 2003, when Dominic Shellard developed the model, the multiplier he used was a general GB multiplier, and it was 1.5. So for every pound that's spent by the theatre, £1.50 gets spent by the total economic opportunity arising from that expenditure. The reason we used Dominic's multiplier was because there were no other multipliers. It's only in the last 2 or 3 years that Northern Ireland Statistics and Research Agency has got round to building an input-output model to construct a Northern Ireland multiplier. The multiplier they constructed for the arts sector is 2.3. Talking it through with NISRA, there were certainly, in my mind, some bits of overcounting in their multiplier. But when they went and looked at it, they couldn't come up with a better number. So they suggested that we could use their multiplier and temper it by using the Scottish multiplier 1.7, and the truth lies somewhere in that range. So what I've done in the study is to create those two impacts, and I'll run through the numbers as we go for that. So that's the basis on which it was put together. Back in 2004, the local impact multiplier with the multiplier 1.5 was 3.59 million. And the total economic activity was 6.75 million. So that was basically the total contribution made by the workings of the theatre. By 2009, that had increased to 6.37 million local impact and 11.15 million total economic impact. If you looked at the grant support given to the theatre by council in 2009, that suggested that for every pound of council grants, the theatre gave back to the local economy on the local impact model £10.36, and on the total economic impact model £18.33. So roll forward from 2009 to 2022-23, and where did that take us? Total economic contribution of the theatre in that year was 10,030,000. If we add to on the local impact model, if we add to that the multiplier, then we add 7 million to give a total benefit arising of 17 million. If we'd used the 2.3 multiplier, that total benefit arising would have been 23 million. Looking at the not at that narrow model, but at the total economic activity model, and the numbers change. Base economic contribution is 14.69 million. We add to that on a basis of 1.7 multiplier another 10.3 million for a total benefit of 24.9. It's so close to be 25 million. On the basis of the 2.3 multiplier, those numbers change to 19 million and 33.8 million. So that's the contribution that the theatre spend makes in the local area. Now, on the same basis, let's look at the return on your investment and the Arts Council's investment. So if we look at grant aid for council and Arts Council, which in 22-23 was £600,541, using our narrow model, the return per pound invested ranges from 28.39 to 38.42. And using the total economic activity model, it runs from £41.59 to £56.29. Now, that's the on the basis of the total contribution to all of Northern Ireland, if you like. And to get that, we've extracted anything that wasn't spent in Northern Ireland. So where theatre, for example, buys a show in from England, we've excluded those numbers. The only bit of those numbers that we've included is the amount of money that the crew and cast of that particular show get by way of subsistence that they spend in the city. So we've been, and in fact, in other ways, we've been even more calculating, to the extent that anything that, in terms of, say, the non-theatrical business, anything that constituted an opportunity that could have been delivered in some other way in the city, we've excluded the income arising from that as well. So we've tried to be as reasonable as we can and not to overclaim. Now, if we look at these return on grant aid, just the grant aid provided by council, which in 22-23 was £460,441. Using, again, the narrow model, the return on per pound of grant spent was ranged from £35.19 to £47.62. Using the total economic activity model, the benefit to the Northwest per pound of grant ranged from £52.16 to £70.58. So that's what you're getting for your grant aid in terms of the wider benefit. I'm going to stop at that point before commenting on the community contribution and asks, was that as clear as mud?
Thank you. And I forgot to mention at the start that we usually limit presentations to 10 minutes with then answers or question and answers then for a further 10 minutes. So does anybody want to come in at this stage with any questions? No, I don't see. So you can proceed if you have.
Chair, I have my hand up.
Oh, sorry, Alderman Hussey, go ahead.
Thank you, John. It's just an expansion of your figures.
Yes.
You're emphasizing the contribution to the local area.
Yes.
And then you said that money spent by participants was spent in the city. Can you define local? Because we're talking about funding from our entire district council funding,
Yes.
which expands far beyond the city. So, for example, I'm sitting over 30 miles away from the city, and you've emphasized for each pound of investment, there are multiples. What sort of multiple would apply in my area? Obviously, distance reduces the multiple that economic benefit spreads beyond the city. Thank you.
It's a good question. In reality, so much of the spend becomes locationally based. So given that the theatre is in the middle of the city, that additional voluntary spend, which is really the main element of this, will largely be spent in the city for hiring hotel rooms, eating out, having a drink after, and or travel. Now, it could well be, and one of the things that we did look at, because we got to get the additional voluntary spend figure, we surveyed over 200 of roughly 230 audience members over a period of time. And we looked specifically at their travel costs. So it could well be, and the majority of those people had traveled by car. It could well be there would be, and there were certainly patrons interviewed during that process from Strabane, Castlederg, and further south and west. So that, but at that point we don't have that specific. So you're right in the sense that it outside of the city per se, because that's where the theatre is located. It's difficult to see exactly where the return is. Now, where I suppose where you do see the benefit of that is in employment terms, that the theatre and in supplier terms. I personally don't know where the suppliers that are based. We didn't look at that. We looked at whether they were based in the Northwest, and that was essentially in the council area, en masse, whether they're based across Northern Ireland, outside of the council area, and whether they're based outside of Northern Ireland. But we didn't, alas, get down to it. But there is, for the folk of Castlederg and Strabane and the rest, there are obviously employment opportunities, and there are opportunities arising as a supplier. And you would like to think over time, when, and this is a Northern Ireland issue in general, that the role of theatres are recognised for their tourism potential, that would contribute to the wider opportunity across the wider council area. But unfortunately, I can't give you a better answer than that.
Thank you, John, for Your answer. I'm sure David and Martin have heard me on this before, so they know exactly where I'm coming from. But thank you, John. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. Thank you, man. Alderman Hussey. Anybody else want to come in at this stage? Councillor Cusack?
Chair, can I just speak at the end whenever we finish the full presentation? I think that might be a lot more fluid. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So if you want to continue with your presentation, I can just ask you to be as concise and summarize as best as possible, because we're kind of have a tight time scale here. Thank you. So continue on.
I will, Chair. The economic bit is sort of quite technical, and there were more words in it than I could give you. So this is a lot quicker to deal with. The primary benefit to the community arising has to be the existence of the theatre per se, and its ability to deliver live entertainment all year round. So if you wanted to measure that specifically, you're looking at 160,000 people who use the building. And that's, if you like, the first element of contribution. If I were to bring up, by way of comparison, what ticket prices are like in the Forum versus what they're like in the Grand Opera House, or what they're like in any theatre you want to mention in GB, you would see what a good deal the local community gets. But the theatre doesn't just think that its responsibility to the community is to operate and be a theatre. It very much has a commitment through education and outreach. And in that, it's very specifically targeted 3 groups: young people, old people, and people with disabilities. So I will very quickly, if I may, run through just a few of the things that they do. The issue with the young people is essentially to show them that there is an opportunity for future career development. So, and that's done through an annual youth musical, which targets 12 to 21-year-olds, and every year would normally deliver 60 training places that would ultimately lead to a production on the main stage at the theatre. The Interact Youth Festival has been going now for 16 years, again, targeted at the same group of people. And just to give you a measure of that scale, in 23, there were 378 participants in that programme. More recently, we developed some new programmes, the theatres developed some new programmes, Your Forum, Your Stage, or the Happy Stage project as it's known. Bit of an older age group, 12 to 18, and there were 70 participants in that last year. And again, that's not only looking at theatre as a career, but it's looking at the health issues that young people in those age groups can face. And as part of the team, health professionals have helped to deliver a very tailored program that tackles the problem that young people have head on. Open mic nights and unplugged nights. It's always difficult for young people, and my time chairing the Music Industry Commission showed that it's always difficult for young people who are interested in music to get the chance to perform. And this program specifically aims to do that. 12 to 21, typically 5 events a year, 20 participants an event. And typically also those events are attracting 80 people in the audience. So it's not just the 20 people who are participating, it's 100 people who are getting involved. And the participation, the opportunity for people who wouldn't otherwise get to participate is likely to attract others who maybe are too, what would you say? I'll not say afraid to get involved, but have chosen not to get involved, that peer-to-peer opportunity definition would help with. School tours have been a theatre function for years, and those are continuing. And they've now extended in a thing called the Creative Schools Programme. That's happening in 24 for the first time. And the target is to engage 60 young people per school over 2 year groups in school. It starts with St. Joseph's in Craigin.
John, could I just ask you to summarise now as best you can, please?
Sure, okay. moving away from the young people and disability groups, dementia-friendly tea dances have spawned a whole raft of activity in that area, not just for old people, but also for those with disabilities. When I'll stop with this, there are agreed set of outcomes targeted that we're monitoring against, and we would have something of the order of 3,500 people involved in participation in all of those events. There's one last point I'll make. The theatre sees the need to deliver a legacy, and it's already working with artists from the area who are professional to create that legacy. And the whole point of that is to draw additional involvement in the community. And there's a whole pile of more information I could give you, but I'll stop there.
Thanks, John, and apologies for pushing you on, but we do have quite a substantial agenda to get through today. So I'm going to open it up now. I'll open it up now to the floor. I have Councillor. I'll go with Councillor Cusack first, and go ahead, Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, John, and thank you, David. And John, thanks for all that information. Now, being on the board myself, I'm privy to all those facts and figures, and I have to say that I've had the privilege of being on the board, and it has been an absolute privilege for a number of years now. So I can see what goes on behind the scenes, the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, and I really cannot imagine the city without the theatre, without the Millennium now. It's such an incredible asset, and I get really kind of angry when people start to criticize it. It's in a city, so therefore, yes, whatever happens and whatever sort of economic benefit normally does stay within the city because people are coming to it. They're not going to stay, forgive me, Derek, in Castle Derrick if they're going to the Millennium. But yes, as you said, there's feeders with the theatre. There's other benefits with other organisations, employment, etc., etc. I've also seen how they face such challenging times, especially during COVID, and how they kept their heads above water and had to think outside of the box. And a lot of that too was with very, very difficult financial times. They were keeping staff on. They didn't lay anybody off. Another thing they do as well too, which I'm incredibly proud of, is they employ young people, and they employ them at the same rate of salary as other age groups. So they don't decipher between, you're older, you should get more money. You're all doing the same job. You're all doing the same work. And they've also given them incredible opportunities to develop skills, especially in hospitality and service, etc. So, what they do cannot be put down. And when people criticize it, as I say, there's no reason for them to criticize it because it's a great asset to our city. I had the great fortune to be able to be there twice within the past 4 weeks at a couple of shows, and they were packed, and the atmosphere was great, and people were going to restaurants, going to pubs and clubs around the place. They were coming with families, they were coming with children, and the atmosphere was electric. And I would say 50% of the people, and according to your statistics, I'm correct, were from out of town as well too. So it's good to see that because, as you say, it feeds into the local economy to all the other businesses around there. Again, with regards to the other facilities and the other services they provide, yes, what they do with youth, what they do with the elderly, and I work with elderly in another capacity, so those types of programs are so vital, and a lot of them are free as well too. So when people start to criticize, oh, it costs you so much to go to a show there, that's too expensive, that's actually facilitating all the free programs that people can't afford and are really beneficial to our communities. And again, as you said about the price of a show in the Millennium as opposed to one in the Opera House in Belfast, somewhere like that, people will from here pay and travel and go and stay in Belfast and go and see the same show when they have it on their doorstep, and they could actually be feeding into their own local economy and possibly having a better time, quite frankly. So I want to commend yourself on the report. Yes, there's no doubt that the Millennium helps create benefit our economy and create wealth and prosperity within, whatever it does, all its functions and services. And, David, I know the work that you do and the ambition that you have in your programming and trying to get good quality events here and performers here, and how you encourage young people, and how you're actually literally giving young people a stage. So thank you, and you've always got my support. You always have our party support, and I hope that you would have the rest of the council support going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cusack. I will take a number of speakers, and then maybe the panel can come in at the end. So Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for coming in and speaking to us, John. I'm a relatively new member of the board, but I was very happy to be asked to join the board, and I'm glad that you took time in your report to talk about the community benefits of the Millennium Forum, because the economic impact on our city and district is certainly important, and you covered it well in the report. But for me, the lives enriched by the Millennium Forum, by virtue of it being there, are the greater reward from my perspective. You used the word legacy during your presentation, and I can personally attest to the legacy of the Millennium Forum. God, I can remember nearly 20 years ago, my own participation, through my school, through our summer shows in the Millennium Forum, and it was nearly 20 years ago now, and I still remember it fondly to this day. So absolutely can attest to that. Look forward to continuing to work with you on the board. I know that we have a meeting on the 27th. Look forward to seeing you there, and you have our party's support going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Fleming. Alderman Middleton.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in. On behalf of the DUP, we'd like to thank David, John and Martin for being here today and for a very informative presentation. We affirm our commitment to advocating for the Millennium Forum. We all enjoy going to the Millennium Forum, and we'll be singing the praises of the forum as well. We also recognise the social, economic and community benefits that we know you are delivering across many sectors, not just for those of us who are theatre goers, but to disability groups, older groups. It's a very inclusive service, so thank you so much.
Thanks, Alderman Middleton. Alderman McMorris.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in, and thank you, because I know I'm not a part of this committee, but I just wanted to kind of put in my comments and do the comments that has come before. I concur with all that has been said with the previous speakers, and also I just want to add, like Councillor Fleming, I have also recently just had personal experience of what the Millennium Theatre does. Just as a declaration of interest, to Chair, can I note down that I am on the board of the Millennium Forum. I just wanted to say, up until I went on the board, you kind of thought that you knew what the Millennium Forum did and what they provided for the people, not only in our community, but throughout Northern Ireland and further afield. But when I went onto the board, I had difficulty with accessibility issues and whatever, and they were the first to address every single issue that I had in regarding, my accessibility and hearing in meetings and hearing within the programs that they have within the theatre. So I think that they're one of the most commendable organisations who have really taken on board disability. But I have an aunt who has dementia. My mother suffers dementia, but my aunt has recently gone to a nursing home. And when I went to a nursing home recently to visit her, she wasn't there. And we were asking why, where was she? And they said, we've taken all the patients to the Millennium Forum, to disability events. And I can't tell you how much that had an effect on me, knowing that somebody like my aunt who's in a nursing home is still contributing to society, that basically still has a quality of life, that she just wasn't put into a nursing home, and that was it. That was her existence from there on. So I got the opportunity to speak to people within the nursing home, and they were saying about how much of a benefit that the Millennium Forum was to them for multiple reasons, because they were able to take the patients out, but also, you know, it was an impact for them. They were able to engage and see engagement with the community in regards to them visiting the Millennium Forum. So, you know, from a community perspective, I'm a community worker myself, and often we don't get to hear the community benefits of organisations like the Millennium Forum. So it is great to be able to put measure on them community benefits that aren't measured, and they don't really see the impact that it has personally on individual lives. So I just really want to commend the Millennium Forum for the work that they do. Often the arts is underfunded, underrepresented, and you know, and it's just great that us as a council are able to support the Millennium Forum in order to give that kind of diverse experience to not only our community but within Northern Ireland and the UK in general. So I just want to put that on record. I know Alderman Middleton says about the DUP supporting the Millennium Forum, and I just want to put on record that, you know, I on the board will do everything that I can to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMorris. I don't see any. Alderman Guy.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in. First of all, let me thank David, Martin and John for joining the committee today. John, thanks for the presentation. Very in-depth report. I remember another survey being carried out, I think, by the Arts, was it not so a few years ago? And it seemed rather basic, the information that we've been brought before us today. I, as a former, and Martin will know this here, as a former taxi driver, I know the impact that the Millennium Forum and its shows have had on obviously hotels and nightlife about the city. We're steady lifting people to take to different shows, people who had made a night of it or maybe made a full weekend of it, coming to stay in the city whenever, no matter what sort of shows we're on. Alderman Hussey, my colleague, was saying about his own area, not sort of value or making out of it, but I can assure you that there's plenty of people in the area that get full value out of the Millennium Forum and the shows that are on. We used to take 2 carloads after shows, 2 women to up the around Oma direction, and they were quite ardent supporters of the forum. Anything that was on, they were down. Some of the shows, you're thinking, you know, at the age they were, why were they attending this? But they just wanted to go out because it made them feel young. But no, even the queues outside our taxi office after a show, it made a all right night and a very good night. And we were very reliant on that work whenever it came as well. So it's just not across hotels, bars and restaurants, but obviously the taxi industry as well. So thanks for coming on today and thanks for the presentation.
Thanks, Alderman Guy. Councillor Farrell.
Very briefly, I just want to declare an interest because I have a family member who's employed at the forum, but Shauna has eloquently covered the SLP position.
Thanks, Councillor Farrell. I think we've heard a resounding endorsement here today from all the councillors and aldermen on the great work that the Millennium Forum does, and that speaks volume for all the staff and management there. So well done. John, David and Martin, I'll just give you an opportunity just to close there now. So if you would just like to go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just thank all the members for their kind words? Just touching on some of the points that were made. I mean, obviously, it is very hard to quantify benefits for particular areas, you know, in the city and the region. So it is with regards to the work that we do. But, you know, the forum is much more sort of holistic with regards to what we do. You know, and in the last year, we have presented over 250 free community events throughout the city and throughout the region. We've been everywhere from Derg Valley Centre to Claudy and from Craig and Day Centre to the Waterside Hospital. So we do try and generate, a lot of interest in the theatre now by going out. And that's down to some of the members in this chamber who have challenged us on us about it in the past and stuff like that there, and we're now trying to make more connections. But you have to look at the positives as well. And this document that we had done independently is very, very positive for the for the region. So it is, it is showing, how important the arts are as a driver, for the economy, for the nighttime business that goes on throughout the city, which I know has been knocked recently. And if you look at it from the point of view of where we were in 2004, when we generated 3.6 million into the local economy, to where we are now generating some 16.2 million. In 20 years, we've increased the local economy input by nearly 350%. So the question should be asked, where can we be in another 15 years if we keep driving forward and we keep working positively in partnership with the council, on these projects? But look, thanks again for all your support. It's really important in these difficult times. Thanks very much.
Again, Chair, just thank you for giving us the time. Sorry, Chair, just thank you for giving us the time. Really appreciate the very positive comments. And I think David has summed up really well there. The outreach, the programs that we have put in place over the last couple of years as a direct result of meeting with yourselves. And I think it's so important that investment in the arts continues, and it's so vital to our local economy. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for an overwhelming endorsement of what we do.
Chair, can I just make one final thanks? I had a very useful conversation with the executive team on the subject. They were very helpful and very challenging, and I very much appreciate their contribution to this work. Thank you.
Thanks, John, Martin and David, and I apologise again for rushing you on. I'm sure you could be talking for hours on the subject, and you're all very passionate about it. So thanks again for coming in and giving your presentation. Okay, we'll move on to item 7. Matters arising from the open minutes of the Business and Culture Committee held on Tuesday, the 16th of January 2024. Has anybody anything that they would like to come in on? I know that we did one amendment. I think was it Stephen Kelly was down in the minutes as having representing manufacturing NI when in fact he was there as a independent capacity. So I think that's noted. Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not even sure if this needs said or not because I said it for the council meeting, but just in case I didn't declare an interest in Peace Plus, that's all. So maybe I don't even need to say that, but just in case, I'm just saying it now. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Middleton. So anybody else want to come in on matters arising? No, I don't see anybody else. So item 8 is a DNA Museum project update. I believe, Aileen, you were going to give the update there. Thanks, so go ahead.
So thank you, Chair and members. The purpose of this report is to give you an update on the current progress of the DNA Museum project and next steps, and to seek your approval for officers to instruct the integrated consultant team to commence the procurement process. Members, you will be aware this museum project is well progressed and has been previously reported numerous times to this committee. The letter from the Department of Finance to approve the City Deal Inclusive Future Fund investment of 5.3 million for the museum was received on the 5th of June. Tourism Northern Ireland, as you know, act as the lead funder and will undertake the role of investment decision maker on behalf of all the funders. The formal letter of offer for funding was received from Tourism Northern Ireland on the 4th of October 2023. Formal letter of offer for the Department for Communities for funding of £500,000 was received on the 25th of October following approval of their business case. In the interim, the Executive Office have been working on their business case, and their letter of offer has been submitted to Council in January 2024, which means that all the signed letters of offer confirming the funds are approved in place. And members, you'll see the funding table, the current funding table set out in the report. Council's project team has produced a project expenditure plan based on the global cost plan, outlining how each funder's budget will be spent over the duration of the project. This will be subject to change as the project is fully underway and funds are drawn down, and it will be reported and monitored at the project board meeting and managed by Council's Finance Department. Officers have commenced engagement with the ICT to begin work on the procurement documents, to appoint the integrated supply team, followed by the fit-out contractor. And following this engagement with the ICT, the programme milestones have been adjusted as set out in the report, with, I suppose, the key date that everybody's looking at is summer 2026 for the opening of the museum. As part of the project, programme work has started on structural and specialist surveys to check the condition of the building and assist with the planning for approval renewal and listed building consent, which will be submitted later this month. As noted above, the revised programme is based on the timelines provided by the ICT. There are a number of risks inherent within the programme, primarily in relation to the procurement process and costs. Costs will only be known once the final tender prices have been received and are reliant on a reasonable number of tenders being submitted. Once the prices are known, the full business case will be completed and submitted for assessment. There is, of course, a chance that the tender prices will be higher than the currently reflected programme budget. However, we will receive pre-tender estimates from the ICT in the next month, which will give some indication of potential costs and enable the team to look at value engineering to mitigate the risk and ensure the project is delivered. In this instance, members, you're asked to note that if there is a need to re-evaluate the cost, that Council has committed to cover any cost overruns. All the risks are captured in the project's costed risk register, which is closely monitored by the wider project team and the project board, and full updates will be brought to this committee. Work is also underway on the interpretive content for all the galleries, and technical design coordination meetings are in place with the ICT and interpretive design team. The project is well underway, and our officers are working on a series of engagement sessions and events with key stakeholders and citizens to raise awareness of the project. These will take place over the next while, and we'll give a full update on the galleries and convey a greater sense of what the visitor experience will look like. The planned engagement will start this month with an engagement session with the Ebrington tenants and a meeting with the external historical advisory panel. Following on from that, there will be further key stakeholder meetings with groups such as Foyle Port, the Arts and Culture Co-Delivery Group, Heritage Venues Groups, and alongside this there will be a scheduled briefing session for yourselves as an elected members to give you a more detailed overview of the project. And members, you may be aware there will be a special council meeting in March on City Deal where the DNA project will also be presented. A lot of that engagement is to give you an idea of the look and feel of the galleries and the archive discovery zone. We will be doing extensive engagement during the Foyle Maritime Festival from the 27th to the 30th of June this year, where we will bring plans for the museum to the wider public. And members, you'll be aware of a separate report tabled in this committee to seek approval to enter into agreement for the lease with the Executive Office in relation to the property known as Buildings 45 to 49 in Ebrington. The key issue from a finance perspective is the need to draw down the approved capital funding for the project as outlined in the letters of offer and the project's expenditure profile as agreed with all the funders. This will be expenditure monitored by the project board. The ongoing revenue implications of the project have been recurrently provided for within Council's budget, and members, you're asked really to approve to formally commence the project following the receipt of the letters of offer and instruct the ICT to get the procurement process underway and to note the wider contents of this report, which includes obviously plans for the briefing sessions with key stakeholders. So thank you, members. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Aileen. I have a number of indicated speakers, so Alderman Middleton first.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. On behalf of the DEP, we're so happy to read this report and to welcome the progress and work that's been done to bring the DNA project to fruition. This is another step forward to seeing the DNA Museum become a reality. This will be great for the waterside, the city and district. We're happy to support and propose if needed also. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alderman Middleton. Councillor O'Neillis.
Aileen, for the report. I don't have any questions for you. I'm just coming in to say that we're delighted that now that all the funding pots have now been put in place and we're ready to begin work on this development. This is going to have a real game changer potential for the local economy and for visitor numbers in Derry. And we welcome it, and we're delighted to see that we're now ready to begin the formal development. Gurmagat.
Gurmagat, Councillor Neelis, Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Aideen, for the report. To say this is a long time coming is an understatement, but we've discussed DNA and its delivery on numerous occasions in this council chamber and in the Guildhall, and I, for one, am delighted with the news today. It's fantastic news that all the letters of offer have been received from every funder, and it represents a £13 million investment in our tourism offering. And I think more importantly, it's a key milestone for our council, because this is the first city deal project where we're actually moving into the delivery phase. So the procurement is going to start very, very shortly. We're going to see work commencing on the site in winter, and then hopefully, if things come to pass, that the museum, which is going to showcase our maritime heritage, is going to open in summer of 2026. So I want to put the SDLP's thanks to Stephen and Aideen and the entire team at council. There have been many obstacles to get us this far, and that's to be expected with the sort of first city deal project, but the team have overcome those obstacles. There were a few, so I just want to say thank you. You have done a great job, and I think we'll obviously do a great job delivering the DNA Museum at Ebrington. And in reality, this is going to transform Ebrington. You know, there's been massive change at Ebrington in recent years, and if you look and if you walk through it now, the change is all around. You've got, the Stitch and Weave is opening. You've got the hotel is opened. There's the residential apartments, which are nearly finished. You've got the really, really positive news that we have here today about DNA. Slowly but surely, Ebrington is becoming a destination in this city. And I just think the news today is really, really positive. And I can't wait to get inside the museum in summer 26. So thank you, folks.
Thanks, Councillor Farrell. And I'd just like to, Alderman Gay, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in. And I'd just like to say, congratulate the team on getting it this far here, and really looking forward to whenever it actually gets over the line. Just backing up what Rory says as well there, about it as a game changer for the city and district. But just what myself and Stephen was chatting about earlier about the improvements in AI, and I don't mean to sound a killjoy in this here, but is the Tides AR experience a chance of being outdated by the time it opens? I know that there was a sort of snippet which we seen about a year and a half ago in council, and it's excellent. I can't wait to see the full thing. But as Tides, are they, let's say what they give us to see, will there be major improvements on that as they even move forward as a company, or is that set in stone now what we will be getting?
So there was a number of observations and a few questions on there, so Aideen, maybe you can come back in.
I'm happy. Was it just, I think it was just Alderman Gay. Did anyone else ask a question, or was it just Alderman Gay? No. So the augmented reality experience is available in the Tower Museum at the moment. It is going to become a feature of the new museum as well. And yeah, I mean, technology is moving on very fast, as you know. We are keeping up to date with that as well. It's only, the augmented reality is only one element of it, and I think as as time goes on, we will be looking to for opportunities in the same way as the Tide experience, the augmented reality experience that we funded through the Tide programme came up. We'd be looking for similar things going forward, and we'd looking at how do we incorporate new technologies into the museum as we would in any case. But yeah, but I would say that the augmented reality experience is available anytime for anyone who is in the Tower Museum at the moment. So feel free to go and have a look at it. There's two separate experiences there that you can do.
Thanks, Aileen, and I'd just like to reiterate what the speakers have said here today. So it's very exciting that this project is progressing. So just commend all the work that you've done, Aileen, and your team. Thank you. So item 9, update on updating events at Ebrington. So Aileen again.
So thank you, Chair. Members, this purpose of this report is to give you an update on the in progress on engagement with the Executive Office following the motion September to Council, and to advise you on the progress of the expression of interest process to enable large-scale events to take place at Ebrington in 2024. So members, you'll be aware there was a motion to Council which reaffirmed Council's commitment to the transfer of Ebrington as soon as is practically possible, and tasks officers with urgently engaging with the Executive Office so Council could provide the management and oversight function of sustainable and cost-effective events at Ebrington Square. And the Council also recognises the value events bring to the City and District, and are committed to working with all relevant partners to ensure every avenue is explored to bring events to Ebrington in 2024. So Executive Office and Council recognise the need for a comprehensive events and management strategy for the overall site in the longer term, and to develop this there's a need for proper engagement with all stakeholders. This is a piece of work which the Executive Office are committed to undertaking and resourcing, and which Council officers welcome and will support with. The Executive Office and Council recognise the need to have a strategy that supports the tenants, residents and citizens to ensure a successful space, supporting a thriving, prosperous and sustainable city and district for all. The Executive Office has, as you're aware, identified that there are current legal restrictions on the site in relation to events, including a limit on the number of events which can be held, and they are committed to reviewing this as part of the overall strategy development. To do this, the Executive Office wants to engage widely on ways to realise the full potential of Ebrington for the people and communities of the city and across the district. This includes an inclusive and ambitious approach to creative and cultural events and vibrancy at Ebrington. And the department highlights that it wants to better align what is happening now on site with and shape new possibilities for community-based and wider stakeholder approaches, supporting, for example, arts and culture, tourism, heritage, good relations, and other strategies local communities have already co-designed along with the Council. It includes how best to support the DNA Maritime Museum when it opens in 2026. The Executive Office, supported by an independent facilitator, is initiating a series of one-to-one meetings with a range of stakeholders to include business and arts sectors, elected representatives, community, residents, schools and local interest groups, event promoters and tenants. And in addition, 2 public events are planned for March of this year to support discussion on the shared ambitions for Ebrington, including events on the square. This approach includes scope for online surveys and submissions, and Council officers understand that this detail will be shared by TEO in due course, and officers are content to share this where possible. As this process, as you'll be aware, is one will take some time, and it was unrealistic to try and achieve this in time for the 2024 events calendar. Members, you will know following the motion passed in Council in September and your subsequent approval given in October committee, was to run a short-term application process to ensure events are held this summer. This process related to large-scale events which require an entertainment licence only. So officers issued a short expression of interest in early November for event promoters to register their interest for requested dates. The process was managed by Council, and as part of it, the expression of interest, promoters were asked to demonstrate their experience, details of their events, and the dates requested. Applicants were also asked to confirm they were able to meet the terms and conditions of the site, and they will be able to confirm their acts at least 6 months in advance. As a result of this process, 8 applications were received, and the top 5 scoring applicants were selected at the end of November. They were subsequently advised of being successful and given the opportunity to hold their events on their proposed dates. 2 applicants had applied for the same date, therefore only the top scoring applicant was awarded that date. All the awarded applicants had been reminded at this stage that they had to confirm act at least 6 months in advance as agreed. The 5 event promoters that have been successful are set out in the report with dates ranging from May until August. All successful applicants are offering multiple nights in the range of events selected cover many genres of music. 2 of the successful applicants currently have announced some of their gigs and appear to have tickets on sale for June and August dates. One of the applicants, Festival City Events, could not proceed with their application as they were unable to meet the 6-month deadline in advance of notification. I can also confirm, so officers we are continuing to work with other promoters to ensure their information is provided. And I've noted in the report that I agreed at this committee to give a further update. So I can say that the events on the 3rd and 4th of August, we've had no response from that promoter. So, and they would have had to give us their dates, I think, on the 3rd of February. So as we've no response, we're considering that event as being withdrawn from the schedule. As you know, once successful events are confirmed, the Executive Office will manage the events on site thereafter and will be responsible for documentation, etc. on the site. We council officers will provide ongoing advice and guidance to the TEO to ensure these events are delivered safely and effectively should they require it. Council officers will continue to review with TEO and discuss if any additional resources are required to support these events. It is possible this may involve overseeing operational and health and safety plans for some or all of these events. This would require significant resources. However, if requested, members are asked to approve in advance, subject to the availability of that resource. It should be noticed the Council's licensing department, which members will be aware sits within the Health and Community Directorate, will separately and independently deal with these and any other events on their entertainment licence requirement and to ensure they attend the Safety Advisory Group. For all other activities and animation, the Executive Office continues to welcome inquiries from relevant groups and will endeavour to facilitate these. The Executive Office are also working with Council to facilitate civic events. Members, you should note there's currently no confirmation of any process for 2025, and it's envisaged this will be considered following the current process being undertaken by the Executive Office and an examination of the resources available going forward to effectively manage both the events process and on-site. Members of this committee will be aware of the timeline set out in the report for the DNA Museum, and while this is overwhelmingly positive news for City and District and the Ebrington site itself, it will require extensive building work to take place on the site throughout 2025 and will see an added dynamic to the site thereafter. So officers are working with the Executive Office on managing this and considering the implications for the overall operation of the site in 2025 and beyond, with a view to incorporating this consideration into further proposals to elected representatives. Members, in terms of this report, there are no significant financial, legal or other implications. It should be noted that there's no readily available staff or budget resource to support with the current process or further asks from the Executive Office, and a resource would need to be found within existing budgets. Members, you're asked to note the contents of this report and to approve allocation of resources if requested to support this process, subject to availability of staff and budget.
Thanks, Aidan, for that update. Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Aidan, for the report. It is good to see that there are applications coming in. It's a good start to the process, so it's something that we would hopefully see built upon in order to secure on a sustainable basis, particularly for the square itself, and even particularly after the construction to the DNA Museum. I just wanted to ask about that in 3.16 in relation to the dynamics that will take place when the building works has gone on, that we are kept up to date with that and how that will affect bookings going forward, if it will have any implications, and just to ensure that there's proper notice given to any interested parties. But I think as well, the booking process that we are undertaking now, and yourselves as council officers, it will be a learning curve as well for all of us. And if bookings are going to be sustained in the square, it's important that we learn from any mistakes that are being made now and tightening up the process of application, because the last thing that we want is you being under pressure or having to push goalposts and stuff like that. So it's very welcome by our party, and we hope that bookings will be coming thick and fast over the years. But as I say, with the building of the museum, it would be good to be kept up to date as well with any implications that'll be had there. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Hutton. Aidan, do you want to come back in there, or do you want to wait for further? Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Aidan, for the report. Where do I start? We've had this discussion before. There was widespread anger and disappointment when news broke previously that there would be no events at Ebrington, and that anger was well placed because we've got an ideal concert venue in the middle of the city that wasn't going to be used. Things have moved on a bit. You know, we've set up this process looking for events for this summer. We've got some, which is good news. That's positive. One question. So there's currently a cap on the number of events that require an entertainment license that can be held at Ebrington. And that cap is 5. And we had 8 applications, 5 were scored. The first one didn't submit any backup evidence about who the artist was going to be, and it was deemed withdrawn. Now we're being told that the event for the 3rd and 4th of August so they're not engaging with us. So the cap that was 5, now we've got sort of 3 events that we hope will proceed this summer. You know, people are out there will look and see Ebrington as a city centre location, an ideal location for concert venues that is largely, let's say, underutilised. I walk through it twice a day. It's a fantastic setting, but it's not used. It's just not used, especially the square. And a lot of people, myself included, think there should be a lot more events there. You know, it shouldn't be limited to 5. And it looks like this summer we're going to have a maximum of 3. So is there anything that we can do? I know we ran the process. We had like a tender out for expressions of interest. Now that we know, or we believe that we're going to have 3 events, is there any scope for us to run another exercise to see, can we fill those 2 remaining spaces to ensure that we have the maximum of 5 events this summer? I know it may be difficult, especially if we stick to the 6-month rule in terms of who the artist is, but is there any room for manoeuvre there at all?
Thanks, Councillor Farrell. Aidan?
If you're asking about large-scale events that require an entertainment license, we're very clear in the process, and they were very clear in the what we communicated to everybody in the decision that was taken, that the process would require you to give 6 months notice. So really we don't have any room. I think we have to stick to the process that we put out to the market. We had other feedback from other promoters that, you know, will be that we have shared with the Executive Office. Some promoters said they wouldn't put in. They said there wasn't enough notice. They would consider it for 2025. There was one other promoter that expressed significant concern about the lack of a minimum ticket price as well. So it's a very complex space. But what I would say in terms of events at Ebrington, I think what we are hearing from the Executive Office, they're absolutely committed to ensuring that there are events. Certainly for the longer term, they're absolutely committed to enabling as many other events as possible. So if you want anybody who wants to do any other activity that does not require an entertainment license, so is that they will have that type of activity every day of the week. And, you know, as you know, we're working with them on the half marathon, on numerous other events that are coming, you know, that are coming across our desks every day. So I would say not within the current process. Now, one of those events, like each of those events applied for multiple nights. So the event that is scheduled for the end of August, I think, is over 3 nights. The event for the June one is over 3 nights. So, and I think there's 2 nights on the end of July event. So they're not. So that's quite an. Although they're, I mean, and the executive office have considered one event. They've called it one event over a weekend, if you like. So that's multiple nights. So that's quite. There's still quite a number of nights there that there will be a music event on over the summer. I think probably given where we were, that's probably quite a healthy position to be in at this stage. But it would be very difficult for us. I think as an officer team, we would have to really consider how we would manage that. You know, we don't have an available resource really to manage this. We are making it work because we wanted it to work, and we agreed to support the executive office, and they have been very supportive as well to try and ensure that events happen and that the wider site grows and thrives. So, you know, there are still tenants and residents on that site that need to be, and the wider population as well. You know, having a large scale event puts a big impact on any site, on anywhere. And it is doable and they're great, but they're not the sort of things that anywhere you can have any day of the week, or every day of the week, as it were. So there's a lot of stakeholders, there's a lot of things to manage, and that requires a lot of resource and you know, and it needs to be very careful. So I think if we get a few events this year, or a few nights of an event, I think that'll be very positive. And I think the site itself, the activity that's going to take place, and if that message gets out really strongly to other groups throughout the city and district, that so long as you're not looking for an entertainment license, you can do, they want to facilitate events on that site. There's a lot of developments on the site as well. You know, you mentioned there's new restaurants opening. The museum will change the dynamic of that site. The reality of it is it will look very different. You will have much more people coming into it every day. It will be a new, you know, it will be a new era, I suppose, for the site. It's exactly what you as members and the public have been talking about in terms of that site. So I would, to restart or make adjustments to this process at this stage is very difficult and very complex. And I think we're doing well to get to where we are now. I'll stop talking now.
Thanks, Aileen. Go ahead, Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thanks for that response, Aileen. You know, I agree in terms of, you know, the long-term vision for Edmonton, that there needs to be consultation with stakeholders, residents, tenants on sites, the arts and culture sector across the city and district. Totally agree with that. And I welcome the fact that the executive office are starting that outreach, they're starting that consultation. And I know that an overarching strategy for the site, it's just like unachievable to have it delivered this year. Have they given any indication of timescales? Do you think that strategy will be agreed for next year ahead of some sort of procurement exercise for events in the square next summer? And in fact, specifically around the cap on events, of any indication of timescales or expected timescales for that consultation and for a decision on that?
They are going out, I mean, the timing is set out there. It's our understanding they're going to do that fairly quickly, that initial consultation, with a view to being mindful of what's required for 2025. I think they're also mindful of the fact that they may need to do 2 phases of work, because they'll need to do a short-term piece of work to look at 2025. But I think they're mindful of the fact that the site itself is going to change how how the site works, how everybody sees the site is going to change by summer 2026. So I think they're minded to look at how they manage that in maybe two, phases. I don't think they're keen to rush into anything. I think they want to make sure there's a process in place for 2025 and do as much consultation as they can as possible. But they are very aware of the fact that it's really only until 2026 and maybe even 12 months post opening of DNA that the site, that it'll really be clear what the site looks like and how it operates and how busy it is at what times and all of those dynamics, that it will only be really then that everybody, all the stakeholders will be able to get round the table and say, right, this is what's feasible, this is what it looks like, and this is how we're going to manage it. And there's a number of things that once the site is finished, as it were, or has got to, that you'll be able to look at in terms of facilitating events. And maybe that's stuff like permanent infrastructure, or there's once you see what it's going to be, there's ways then to start to enable it. So they haven't confirmed with us. I just know from our preliminary discussions with them that they are looking at how that journey. But they're definitely committed and are aware of the timing around 2025, and we've been impressing that on them, that's important.
Thanks, Aileen. We need a proposer and a seconder to approve the allocation of resources if requested to support the process, subject to availability of staff and budget. So take it, Aisling and yeah, okay. Go ahead, Alderman Guy. Sorry.
Thanks, Chair. Just Aileen, one thing there where you mentioned minimum pricing. Now, I am a fan of minimum pricing. I think it's the best way to basically attract a better quality of act. What is the agreed minimum price at the minute? Is there any? No. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 10, cultural grant aid results. Aileen, over to you again.
So thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to secure your approval for the allocation of funding for the culture grant aid programmes for cultural organisations, heritage animation, the Access Programme for Cultural Organisations, Headline Events, Community Festival and the Artist and Culture Practitioner Award for the coming year. So members, you'll be well familiar with this grant aid programme that opened before Christmas. This is the results of the program. I'm going to try and just go through it and extract the key points, because I think you all are familiar with the funds, but there's a couple of just points to note in terms of the outworkings of this. So in terms of the Cultural Organisations Fund, you will know that 3 years ago we started into a 3-year cycle. So this year is the first year of a new 3-year cycle. The total value of eligible applications for arts organisations was just over £221,000 against an available grant aid budget of £192,000. So you will see immediately there that there is a shortfall. This contrasts with the total value of eligible applications in the previous 3-year cycle, which was 195,000. So this is primarily because there's new entrants into that fund, which we have been highlighting for a couple of years now. But this is obviously creating. You'll see in the Appendix 8 where the results of the Cultural Organisations Fund are set out. You will see that there is organisations that have fallen out of that fund now because of the pressure on that fund. So you obviously have more entrants and no increase in budget. In terms of Heritage Animation Visitor Servicing Fund, the budget there is 83,600. In previous years, members, you've approved an allocation of up to 14,000 to meet eligible costs of those organisations applying into the Cultural Organisations Fund. Again, it's recommended that we retain this level of funding, and it's ring-fenced. The total value of applications received for this amount was 22,000. for one of the applicant organisations, and we obviously had to seek some verifications. The result of that, so there again, there's a shortfall in that fund. The results of that are set out in Appendix 9. The balance of 69,000 to support heritage and visitor servicing, which is a total of 8 applications. And following the assessment process, the budget for this fund has been allocated across 7 of the 8 applications. 1 failed to meet the 50% threshold. And in order to address the increased level of interest, the available budget has been allocated on a pro rata basis to allow all those eligible to receive funds. And again, summary is outlined in Appendix 2. Appendix 9 is cultural organisation, Appendix 2 is heritage animation. So it has been pro-rated and 1 has fallen out of that because they didn't meet the threshold. The capital-based access programme was, the total value of applications was 210,877 from 9 organisations. A summary is outlined in Appendix 3. You will be aware that in previous years we have sought support for this fund for Department for Communities, which we will be doing again. There are some, it's note there that some of the applications have ineligible items, but they're all subject to an audit, to their, as you know, to their audit. So we're working with those organisations to ensure that their asks align with the respective audits. For the Headline Events Fund, the total value was £396,900. This is 14 eligible arts and culture events. There was, with an existing budget of 205,000, of the 14 applications, 10 would receive funding, and one of these would only receive part funding. Again, the results are set out in Appendix 1. You'll know, members, that in previous years an amount of £30,000 was ring spent for sporting events. We've no sporting applications, so that money has been transferred just to the general arts and culture pot. You'll also note that there were 2 submissions for events over the Easter period in 2024, which this year falls in late March. So, members, it's recommended that these applications are accepted into this process for the 2024-25 financial year. And you'll also be aware of our national events funds, and to date we've only had 1 application for a national events fund. This applicant has also applied to the Headline Events Fund. A separate application for this has been submitted for Headline, and as you know, that requires a specific report to this committee, which officers are working to prepare for March. And while applicants in theory can apply for both processes, if successful, they can only draw down from 1 fund. Officers are recommending that they're given the choice to decide which scheme they want to go with if successful, following your decision in March. If the event wishes to accept the offer from the Headline Fund at that stage, any underspend within the National Event Fund would be redistributed to the Headline Events, which would see further awards within that scheme. In terms of community festivals, the total value of eligible applications was 259,575. There was a significant increase in the number of applications made to the Community Festivals Fund for this year. There were 18 applicants to the upper fund, with 1 not meeting the threshold, and 14 applicants to the lower fund, with 5 not meeting the threshold. Officers recommended, in order to ensure a wider spread of the limited budgets, that members agree to award funding on a pro rata basis, which we have done in previous years, to ensure that more applicants get funding. With the existing council budget of 92,400, this would mean that all 8 applicants in the lower amount would get awarded part funding, and 6 applicants would receive funding on the upper level and 1 part funding. 1 applicant applied to both, so they will only receive funding from 1 scheme. A full summary of the applicants outlined in Appendices 4 and 5. As you know, we generally apply to the Department for Communities for a top-up to this fund for community festivals for a contribution. Last year they contributed 29,800. If the amount remains similar for the coming year, it would see a further 3 events being funded. You should know, and note in the above, there are a number of events, of worthy events, that have met the threshold, but which with existing budget remain unfunded. There are 3 events such as this in the Headline Fund, and there are up to 5 events in the upper level of the Community Festival Fund. So if additional cost savings can be found, or there are withdrawals from this process, officers would recommend that this funding be allocated to those remaining funds. Members, you'll know that you agreed in 2023 to ensure the distribution of funding for Christmas events was equitable, and that the previous Christmas grant aid budget of 15,000 and the £3,000 previously allocated to specific areas from the former Strabane Council would become an open competition via the Community Festival Fund. Events into the Community Festival Fund were asked to indicate if they were applying for Christmas funding. 7 applications were received, 2 of which were deemed ineligible. 5 of the events are to be awarded funding, and although members had asked for 1 from each DA to be prioritised, this wasn't necessary. Also, members should note this award would receive the full amount asked for, as the maximum pot is small, so that fund wasn't prorated. And a summary is in Appendix 6. A total value of 35 eligible applications came into the Artists and Practitioner Fund, and you previously approved a budget of an allocation of £16,000. So based on this budget, there will be an award made to the top 15 applicants to a total of 14,475. The next 6 artists listed in order of merit all scored 80%, but to make an award to these artists would exceed the current maximum budget of 16. Again, a summary of those results set out in Appendix 7. Total value of applications to the capital-based access programme was 210,877 from 9 organisations. Again, a summary is outlined in Appendix 3. We, as you know, seek to draw down additional funding from the Department for Communities for that. I'm going over my page again, sorry. So I covered everything. Now what do we see? So yeah, I think that is a summary of all of the funds. And yeah, members, unless there are any questions, you're asked to approve the award as set out. Note the award allocation outlined in this report for cultural organisations. In the third of a 3-year cycle, approve the proposed award for heritage animation, approve the proposed award allocation for access, and approve the proposed award for headline events, and approve the proposed allocation for community festivals, and approve the proposed awards for the Artist and Practitioner Fund. Members, I'm happy to take any questions, being mindful that there are some significant shortfalls across some of those funds. So also happy to discuss any of those issues with any members that wish to separately.
Thanks, Aileen, and comprehensive report there. It's a limited budget is a big issue, and I'm sure it could impact the viability of some of these organisations going forward. So I would ask officers to explore all areas available to see if any additional funding can be provided, source, to assist these organisations that were not successful in this application process. So maybe you could take that on board, and maybe somebody could have a look down the back of the sofa to see if there's any extra money. But it would be we would be very appreciative. I know you've done a lot of hard work and diligent work on this. So I'll bring in Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Aileen, for that very detailed report. And just to congratulate the successful applicants, but as Barney has rightly pointed out, there are shortfalls in some areas. I particularly just wanted to draw attention to the Cultural Organisation Fund, which is brilliant because it's a 3-year funding. It's 3 years of funding for each project, which provides that security and longevity, particularly because these funds go directly into core costs. So just to reiterate that fund is really important in ensuring that some of it's topped up, because the organisations which have a shortfall, a very significant shortfall, probably in the region of £15,000, could literally close them down. So it's just to put emphasis on that one, because it is a core cost, and obviously throughout the whole all of the tables, if the request is put to DFC, and I'm sure Alfie is working extremely hard on it at all, that everybody does get topped up. But I just wanted to reiterate the importance of the core cost one for cultural organisations. Thank you very much, Aileen.
Thanks, Mr. Hutton. Do you want to come in, Aileen, or do you want to wait till the end? Okay. Okay, Alderman Hussey, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, not a member of committee, and thank you for the previous permission as well. Aileen, just very briefly, when will the anonymity be removed, and when will we know the actual names of organisations? Because as Councillor Hutton is saying there, the impact can be locational, and it's something that, you know, it's a very, shall we say, objective process, and I understand the rationale for that. But at some stage, there has to be an element of subjectivity with regard to the whole process. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Alderman Hussey. Anyone else want to come in? Councillor Farrell.
Briefly, Chair, I thank you, Chair, and thanks, Aileen, again for the report. Like, I've done a quick calculation, and I could be wrong, but it's like £832,000 or something like that. That's what we've invested there. I just think that level of investment shows, well, it demonstrates our support for the arts and culture sector across the city and district. It demonstrates the value we put into, you know, the events and the festivals that they hold throughout the year. And when we had spoken about this before, we knew that some of these funds would be oversubscribed, and it came to pass that they actually were. And I think that demonstrates, you know, what I had said earlier about we need proper support from the Arts Council, from DFC, because the feeling within the sector is that organisations here in the Northwest are getting a raw deal. They're fully supportive and fully appreciative of the support that comes from Council. But when we look at DFC, when we look at the Arts Council, that support isn't there in the way that local organisations would like. So I think it should be a key priority now that we've got the executive up and running, that we've got a minister in place, that we make that argument directly to DFC and directly to the Arts Council. But it's a massive investment, and it just shows how much we appreciate the sector. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Farrell. Aileen, you want to come back in there?
Yeah, I'm happy to come back in. So we just on response to Alderman Hussey, we'll be, after this meeting today, we'll be contacting all of the applicants as quickly as we can, and I'm happy to share any details with any elected members that would like that anonymised detail. There's no problem with sharing that at this stage once this meeting is complete. Just going back to Councillor Hutton's point in terms of cultural organisations, it's a 3-year funding cycle, and we are aware of the impact. And to that end, while this, and going back to Councillor Farrell's point, this is very positive news in terms of the investment. I know that there are efforts being made by ourselves, and particularly by our lead finance officer, to try and identify savings that would enable these funds to go further. I would ask, or it would be officer's suggestion that we would prioritise cultural organisation fund in terms of spending, allocating any savings that can be found, to then move to the headline and then community festival funds. I am aware that there was a request to this by this committee to try and identify funds for the individual artists. And I don't think we would detract from that, but I think if members are content, we would look to allocate resources to the cultural organisations first, given it's so intrinsic to the survival of those organisations, and then across the events, some of which have timing and date issues as well. So I think if members are content, we would proceed on that basis. I don't think there's any other questions, unless if I've missed a question, happy to take it.
Thanks, Aileen. I think everybody's happy enough. Do we need a proposer and seconder for that? So Councillor Farrell proposes, Councillor Hutton second. Okay, we're moving on now to open for information. I'll just take the 2 items one at a time, and if anybody wants to come in. Strabane Business Improvement District bid, pages 75 to 78. Anybody want to come in? No? Councillor Farrell?
Chair, can I come next then?
Roma got a Kylie as CAD Cancha Hortu. Thanks very much, Chairman, for letting me in. No, but when I'm Falchuk or Riven Torreshaw Tasharos, I would like to welcome this report. It's A1, it's brilliant altogether. I just want to say that the board members of the BDI deserve praise in this. They set out themes, key themes, and they fulfilled the whole lot. This Christmas campaign of theirs was very successful. They had radio interviews, made short videos, all the different things that we've outlined here. But it turned Christmas into success in Strabane. We had the extra trees too out at the tennis net. But it just created an air of positivity coming up to Christmas and all through the Christmas period. And they should be praised for their work. Thank you very much.
Councillor Farrell. Was that you, Councillor Gallagher?
It was indeed, Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you for letting us in. I don't know, but everybody came to Strabane today, and it's a very dairy-centric agenda, but I'll wait patiently. I'm a great supporter of this bid and what it tries to do. And thanks for the report. Chair, like looking at it, right, the work that it does, it is limited in the sense that it's funded by the business community itself. So it sort of puts a stranglehold on it, Chair, and I think it could be doing much more if it was given a bit of finances and resources in order to deliver the plan that it's looking to do. And Chair, I mind like a few years ago, we used to have areas that were called like enterprise zones. And like, because the Strabane is an area of bid, I believe that we talked earlier on about organisations not weighing in, like Invest NI. Chair, I'd like to propose that this committee writes to the Department of Economy and highlights the work that BID is doing and what it's trying to do and what it wishes to do. And I believe that they should be making resources available to the BID group in order to, as it says on the tin, promote, strengthen, support, approve and attract the economy in Strabane district. So, Chair, if you'd allow me, I'd like to propose that.
Thanks, Councillor Gallagher. Just on a side note, I've been working over the last few months with businessmen and BID and Invest NI. I had a meeting there last week in relation to the establishment of a business hub in Strabane, and I have going to have further meetings in that regard. So I've been proactive from a business perspective in Strabane to see what I can do for the town and improve it. But I totally agree with yourself. I'd be happy to second your proposal about writing to the Minister for Economy. I don't know if Stephen, if you want to add anything, or are you happy enough?
No, Chair, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I've taken note and we'll draft up a letter and send it off. I suppose just to reiterate that as a council, we provide the full-time resource for the Secretariat for the bid, which is really important, because I know in talking to our colleagues across the north that other bids are not supported in the same way and rely purely on their board members to do a lot of the work. So as much as we need the board members to have the vision and the drive to drive the bid, this council has basically put the resource in to ensure that work is then followed through, which is really important, which is why I think the Strabane bid is so successful. And so it's really important that we carry that on. But happy to take on, and we'll write the letter and report back next month.
Thanks, Stephen. Councillor Gallagher, are you happy enough for that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm well aware that council does weigh in heavily to bids. It's just, see from the sense of the wider business community, they want to see as much bang for their buck, like, and we will have, and we will see in the near future, like rates going up, and that'll be an extra cost, but central government should be weighing in behind this as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gallagher. Anybody else want to come in? You have enough? Okay, move on to item 12, Go Succeed programme, pages 79 to 94. Anybody want to comment on that? Councillor Hutton?
Thank you, Chair. I just sort of wanted to make comment on how good of an example that Go Succeed is in relation to what our council should be doing to help local and small businesses, because it also does have a role under RPA. So it is great that it's working so well, but I also wanted to mention that my party, Sinn Féin, we've taken the Department for Economy and Sinn Féin's commitment to doing more for small Indigenous companies and social enterprises is well documented. So we're delighted that Go Succeed is going so well, and just to commend the staff and thank them for their work in this initiative. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Hutton. Okay, so if that concludes our business, we'll now go into confidential. That okay? Okay, seconded. And I'm just going to have a comfort break. My vice chair can